Welcome to ESVN OT, the Emma Sports Vigilant Network show. My name is Emma Vigilant, and you know what to do, folks. Subscribe, youtube.com/ESVN show. Put on push notifications so you know when we're going live, because with OT, we don't want to wait until 4. We don't gotta have to do that much reading. We just gotta make our picks. So we go live at, 3:39. Who gives a shit? Like the stream. Rate us 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, wherever you're listening to or watching this. And make sure to comment below, say hello to us, and say hello to Bradley Alsop, the one, the only. Wearing Tilly's shirt today.
Yeah, my first dog, my first love shirt.
And so you have both one for Rosie.
I do. My golden retriever. I have another shirt.
Yes, you do.
I have. I instead of wearing a shirt for like KD or Allen Iverson.
Show off how cute Tilly is to the camera. The best. Back when we used to live near each other before we both moved, because Bradley and you and I lived like for about maybe like a 10-month overlap or something like that. 2 blocks away from one another. And I ran into you one time walking both of your dogs on the street.
Walking my dogs like operating a hot air balloon.
And they are both extremely cute.
Yeah, they're good girls.
Yes. So shout out to Bradley's dogs.
I was like, I'm walking here.
We just that's exactly what you were like.
I was like, Emma walked by me. I was like, hey, whoa, I'm walking here. I was like, oh, Emma, hey,
yeah,
sorry.
Right.
I didn't know it was you.
Right, but that's what every New Yorker does.
Yeah, I'm just a brassy New Yorker.
Yes, every New Yorker has to say that, or else you're not a real one.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's why we go live early sometimes in OT, because we're New Yorkers. We need things quick.
Quick.
Quick. Coffee.
That's our culture. So I just want to say that I'm so sad to see that news about Woj. He has cancer, and I think that's a big part of why he stepped down from ESPN, the network that has no affiliation with the bigger one, ESVN, obviously. But really sad to see that. So my thoughts are out there for Woj and his family, and he's a stalwart of sports reporting, and that's just a tough thing to see. And I'm sure, hopefully he gets the care that he needs, and hopefully he's okay. So. And
part of that article, I was saying this to Emma, was basically he was interviewed, I guess, for this piece on his diagnosis and why he left ESPN. And he said something about how, legendary NFL reporter Chris Mortensen was sick. And I think he had cancer or had a stroke. One, I don't remember which ultimately led to him passing. But he mentioned how very few of his ESPN colleagues went to his funeral, Chris Mortensen's, which put into stark relief for Woj. I think maybe either slightly before or during his diagnosis period, basically being like, at the end of things or whatever happens, like your friends, your family, not necessarily your colleagues, who are professionally, who are professionally not socially responsible to support you in that way, will be there for you. In the grand scheme of things, being a scoop jockey is not everything it has to be, or everything it's all cracked up to be in the grand, for him in the grand, embroidery that is his life. So I think that was part of the reasoning too, is he just sort of saw a little bit more of a cynical side of things at ESPN, which doesn't really surprise me, given how much of a juggernaut it is. And then also, a good friend of mine, one of my oldest friends from high school, worked at ESPN for, I think it was her first job out of college. In a PR role, and she said the company culture was atrocious. And an incredible follow-up sentence to that report, either to end the piece or just as an end to that particular anecdote, was ESPN ultimately hired Shams Charania to replace Woj, who I'm sure definitely thinks about things in those existential terms instead of, how can I double dip on making money from my gambling picks and my show with Kay Adams, as well as reporting on the league that I ostensibly also profit from. Right, exactly. And that friend of mine is a black woman, and I won't say more except to say that even though they report on sports and there are a lot of black players, still not great company culture as it relates to race. Okay. Yep. That doesn't surprise me. Anyway, don't look now, folks, but Bradley and I are 10-2 collectively over the past we're hitting our stride. 2 weeks, which means we will probably be 0-6 cumulatively.
But here we go. ESVN.
Stone cold lock of the century. Or the week.
Yeah, this time it actually like
Boom.
feels. Yeah, this time that boom feels like
Locks.
warranted /
Much more of a
earned.
Much more of an earned lock than our previous picks. Let's put up the little what is this, slide? Yeah, you do on Google. That's what we have, our little document here. I was 3-0 the previous week, but last week I was 2-1, and Bradley was 3-0. He was 2-1 the previous week. And again, Thanksgiving, we didn't have an OT for you, but 3-0 last week. Congratulations, Bradley. I could have gone 3-0, but Houston once again just somehow let Jacksonville back in, and they won by a field goal, but they didn't get that half point. So Houston did not cover the 3.5 point spread. The Cardinals plus 3.5. They just lost by a point to Minnesota. The Denver Broncos on Monday Night Football. They almost had a pick six that
Right.
at the end, but they did that wouldn't have affected the spread, I think, obviously, but it was, I forget why. Oh, I was playing the Denver defense in fantasy. That would have lost me my matchup. Anyway, that's why I was worried about it. Long story short, the Broncos covered against the Cleveland Browns on Monday Night Football. Bradley, the Packers covered against the Dolphins on Thanksgiving. The Seattle Seahawks covered against the Jets, -2.5. The Philadelphia Eagles covered against the Baltimore Ravens. They won that game, and they were 3-point underdogs, which I was a little surprised by, to be honest with you. They're clearly the better team, and I know it was in Baltimore, but
I'm so pleased that I thought about the talent the talent injection that we were talking about on Monday when it comes to the Eagles, and versus some of the kind of under the hood concerns we were having about the Ravens, because I could have sworn when I was watching this game I was certain I picked the Ravens, and I was like, God damn it, I should have picked the Eagles, and then I forgot to look back at our messages because I think it was a little hazy because we didn't actually do OT because last Thursday was Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
But I'm very pleased to
picked right.
I'm pleased to look at my past brain and good job past me for picking the Ravens. Picking the Eagles in that circumstance.
Yes, exactly. Why don't you start off, because we have a similar pick, but you have a Thursday night football pick, which is very bold. Tonight's game, very exciting. Excited about the Packers and the Lions facing off in Detroit tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely a little bit risky because these are two of the best teams, I would say, in the conference as well, and also arguably the league, honestly, especially
definitely like top 6.
I think if the Lions have maybe exhibited just a little bit more consistency, just because they have 2 less losses in the column, I guess you can say that. And obviously,
you mean the Packers?
Well, the Packers are 9-3, right?
Oh yes.
And the Lions, I think, are 11-1.
Oh no, that's okay. I misheard you.
No problem.
I'm a little off today.
No problem.
Go ahead.
I still I still kind of believe / am subscribed to the resiliency of this Lions team, because even despite some of their relying on reserves and things like that, they've still been playing pretty admirably on defense, and obviously and of course the offense really only, I think, except one sputtering Jared Goff performance where he had all those turnovers, which the game, by the way, they still won. They really have been kind of on a real consistent hot streak since the very beginning of the season. I think this Packers defense is very good, and also I think in stretches this Packers offense is, well, the scheme of the Packers offense I feel like is always sound. The execution I think sometimes varies, just in terms of if there are a few drops or if there's a few kind of careless Jordan Love throws or whatever. I'm sort of just banking on my comprehensive feeling about the Lions as a team to be able to, given what they've shown so far this season, gut out a close division rivalry game. And the fact that it's at home as well, which I actually do think for the Lions is an actual advantage, because I think especially with how the fans have been feeling about this team this season and kind of what they derive from that atmosphere, I actually think it's an advantage, as opposed to obviously some of the other stadiums that we discussed that really are sort of like home field advantages in name only. I think I almost picked the Packers when I saw the spread was -3.5, or that the Packers would have been +3.5, just because that half point would, I think that the Lions will probably win this game, but
You know what? Actually, This is the one I like your other two picks. Obviously, I picked the Dolphins as well, but I think the Packers are going to win tonight. That's my prediction. I do think that they will.
And that would be huge. I mean,
I
especially
think
for
a short
for,
week, for I
for
guess.
Detroit, I
Although
guess,
no,
right?
Detroit
Or-
played on Thanksgiving, so it's not really a short
Okay, yeah,
week.
so just
They both played on Thanksgiving,
right.
so it's whatever. But my guess is that the Packers are going to give this their all and probably empty the bag of tricks that they have to try to get an advantage on Detroit to try to win the division because it's over really for them if Detroit wins this game. That's my one. That's why I think they will win the game tonight.
And I guess, as you said, no, and this, and even though it's with -3, even though me thinking that the Lions will win this, I definitely foresee just divisional matchup. They're so close with their records right now. We're rounding into we're turning the corner into the postseason. It's very much in sight at this point in time in the season. So I think this does have the potential to be a bit of a barn burner.
Yep, exactly. All right, well, my first pick, because I'm not picking Thursday night football, so my first pick is on Sunday, and Bradley, we can take this together because we have the same idea. We're both taking the Dolphins -5.5 at home against the Jets.
This one I don't think requires too much explanation.
I think the Jets will be either tied or up at half, and then they'll probably not score again.
So you mean the Jets will play a football game?
Yes, yeah. So
you mean a day that ends in Y?
Yeah, because it's a day and ends in Y. The Jets will score all their points in the first half and then
forget how to play a football game.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that sounds correct, and I think ultimately at some point too, the Miami Dolphins, who have the defense I actually have always thought has been playing relatively well. Honestly, I do think they still have a few really good, really solid players.
They've really improved the Dolphins defense.
Yeah, I really like Zach Sealer up front for them. I just think for the most part they are well coached.
They've also been really good against the run recently,
Right.
which is important for this game because Aaron Rodgers can only dink and dunk, and also Breece Hall has been banged up and he's been fumbling.
And so if there's no release valve for the already moribund, mediocre, clogged up passing offense, and there's really not going to be that many options for the Jets to move the ball.
Yeah.
And on the other side of things, I've been liking a little bit to their credit some of the improvements I've been seeing in terms of the offensive scheming for the Dolphins since Tua's been back. I mean, I feel like Tua's been a little bit more comfortable break and contain and running it when he has to, which is not something I feel like we've usually seen him do. And I do feel like he's connecting better with Waddle and Tyreek Hill over the last few weeks.
And he's fallen in full bloom love with John.
And then if those two options aren't open, he's been able to find something that, as you were just saying, Emma, this extremely potent connection with Jonnu Smith, which I feel like, was sort of foretold in a number of different spots that Jonnu Smith has been in, like that maybe he would have that connection with the quarterback, either in Tennessee or New England or things like that. But it's actually happened so far in Miami. And the reason I bring up those elements of the offense is because any positive element of an offense in the NFL that exists will be magnified by around 30 times its actual potency against this Jets defense. So I anticipate Tua Tagovailoa and these receivers looking like Steve Young and Jerry Rice for the remainder of the game after they score all their points in the first half.
And I'm just gonna sometimes these games, especially at this point in the year, come down to who has more to play for. And the Dolphins are not eliminated from the playoffs. The Jets are not making the playoffs.
The Jets have nothing to play for.
And the Dolphins are at home. And sometimes players go down to Miami and they'll basically take a little bit of a vacation.
As these Jets players probably should.
Which they will. What are they playing for? This coach isn't going to be here next year, the interim head coach.
And he's made the team, and the team is playing worse under him.
Yeah.
And the unit that he presides over is playing worse under him.
And it's also just incredible because I saw this on The Athletic that in their write-up about this, that Aaron Rodgers has completed just 2 of 14 passes over 35 air yards. So he's not able to stretch the field at all. And that is the 5th lowest in the NFL and his lowest since 2016. He's not playing well. And the Dolphins, I didn't know this, lead the league on defense in stopping plays over 20 yards, which is considered an explosive play. They're the best defense in defending against explosive plays. So Rodgers can only one dink and dunk in the way that he's been playing. And the the Dolphins are also incredible if they even tried to stretch the field at stopping explosive plays. So my sense is that they're going to have a good way, a way to combat this team.
And weirdly enough, I've just been hankering for a documentary on Netflix as to how this quarterback got to where he is.
That trailer made me want to just jump
I'm just
off the
so
bridge.
curious how this guy went from being
Enigma.
Yeah, being so mysterious
Enigma.
and such an iconoclast to being an absolute dog shit quarterback that's not even worth watching on Sundays.
You can't even figure him out. It's like, is he Joe Rogan on this day, or is he RFK Jr. on another day?
Or is he going 10 for 27 for 117 yards and 3 interceptions?
It's he's really, really just completely tanked his reputation, and this Jets experiment has
on and
gone
off the field
as poorly as possible. So I'm going with, speaking of narratives and like just emotion, I'm going with the Chicago Bears. I think they're going to win. I think they're going to pull off the upset in San Francisco.
This could be the dead cat bounce.
That's what I'm thinking.
For Thomas Brown and the Bears.
I'm not making that same mistake again because when Allen was fired in New Orleans, I picked the Falcons in that game, and they lost. The Saints won, and I think that there's going to be definitely some sort of lift in the locker room after Eberflus was fired. Sometimes this works in this way, especially with a team that was disgusted by him. I think we said this in our analysis on Thursday that Jalen Johnson, team captain for the Bears, was ripping into Eberflus's decision making, which he should have, in the locker room, and it seemed like the team was united in hating the way that things were going, and they feel that they're too talented for this, which I would agree with. The 49ers are falling apart in front of our eyes. I know that Shanahan will have his guys ready, but they're down to their number 4 running back. Losing McCaffrey for the year is just such a emotional blow. Trent Williams has been injured and also just had a horrible personal tragedy where his son was stillborn. What do they have to play for here? Fred Warner is really struggling to kind of play through injury,
and they need him out there because he's still has to sort of supplement for other injuries that they're also experiencing on the defensive side of things as well.
Yeah, their defense is just not playing well, and my sense is that Caleb Williams and the Bears are going to go out and try to have a day,
make a statement,
and he's back in Cali. Caleb Williams, back where not in Southern California, but he's. I don't know.
I'm going back to Cali.
Yes, and he is going to win this game, is my guess. So I'm going with the Chicago Bears plus 3.5 in San Francisco. Even if they don't win, I just think that half point was tantalizing enough for me to take them. So we just went over that Miami game. My final pick is the LA Chargers plus 4 on Sunday Night Football. Like the Chicago game, if it was 3 points, I don't think I would have made the selection. Or 2.5, obviously. I just think that the Chargers are kind of underestimated still. And I know that Ladd McConkey's is banged up, and I'm not sure necessarily what his status is. Do we have a sense on whether or not he's going to play? Oh, he practiced. He practiced. So he's a tough SOB.
For his size and stature, he's insanely tough.
He's really tough.
He's built like a regular guy.
He's such a possession receiver in that way. And that's why they love him. That's why Harbaugh loves him.
And what's amazing about McConkey is you would maybe think because of his size and stature. I would say this without people, if you hadn't watched his game at Georgia, is that you would think he was potentially a gadget guy because of his height and weight, or someone like Xavier Worthy, not as a one-to-one comparison at all, but just in the sense of maybe they're just a speed vehicle, just something take a top off a defense and not provide a lot of sophistication at the position. What's crazy about McConkey is, even though he is that size, I think he's around 5'11", 185.
He's
something.
6 foot.
Or 6 foot, 180. I think he's
185.
Yeah, 185. He, even as a rookie, in my estimation, is one of the crispest route runners in the entire league.
Yeah.
His ability to shake off chips from cornerbacks or safeties and run his routes with such clean, crisp, and precise angles. against good cornerbacks, he is just creating 5 yards of separation on certain routes. It's incredible to watch.
He's been great.
He's such a technician,
great.
and he's exactly
Harbaugh's kind of guy.
Harbaugh's kind of guy, but also it's very nice for Justin Herbert to have somebody like that. Even though, as we've discussed, it's not as if the Chargers' offense still obviously needs a lot of work. But again, this team is ahead of schedule to begin with, in my view.
You know what? Who he reminds me of, who Harbaugh had, and I don't think he's necessarily been. Has he been playing much this year, like with the Steelers? But is Roman Wilson? He's a similar player that to
totally.
Roman Wilson, who Harbaugh loved at Michigan, even though they mostly ran the ball there. But I know that the Chargers are missing J.K. Dobbins, and he's on IR. But I do think that they're going to be at least able to keep this game close. It's a divisional game. The Chargers have probably had this circled on their schedule for quite a while, and they are a good team. They are a good team. And I think that the offensive line for the Chiefs has been struggling. The Chargers get back Denzel Perryman, and then you have Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa, who have been effective. And Juwan Taylor has been giving up a bunch of sacks for them. So my sense is that their defense is going to be able to make a statement in this game, and they're going to sack Patrick Mahomes as much as they can because he can scramble with the best of them. But they were really outplayed by the Falcons last week. What?
And they still won.
And they still won. My point though is sometimes coaches can be like, we still won, but you need a kick in the ass.
Yeah.
And not that they need a kick in the ass for the Chiefs game, but I think they're going to be pissed at how they played. Herbert threw for 154 yards or something.
It was a putrid kind of offensive performance, especially given how they played the week before.
They lost that game because Kirk Cousins handed it to them on a silver platter, and so I think they're going to be motivated even more so. So I think the Chargers could win this game, but 4 points was too much for me.
And not for nothing, I mean, as you were saying, I mean, obviously the big ticket guys, the banner guys like Mack and Bosa are on that line, but they've gotten really high quality contributions from Poona Ford on that line this year, and then even some of the guys in the back, like a Tarheep Still, that rookie who had the pick six against Kirk last week, as well as Diane Henley and other kind of, these guys have really been coached up and have been playing really, really good football.
Derwin James is having a career resurgence.
Yes, which is he seemed almost like a little bit lost, and almost like his mojo / his kind of disposition and sort of his bounce kind of just seemed to be sort of dimmed at the end of the Brandon Staley experience for them. So
wow.
And then also guys like Tuli Tuipulotu, and he has a lot of sacks for a second, third year guy. So I definitely think they can make things difficult, because I just think this unit is so much better than they were even a year ago. And if the Chargers offense can even round into form just a little bit more than how bad that Falcons game looked, I think this could definitely be close. And as you said, it's divisional, so it's even with the Chiefs being the Chiefs, they've been winning most of these games in the most improbable ways possible over the last 13 weeks. And the margins are actually quite thin, despite them being 11-1.
The fact that they should have lost that game to the Raiders.
Yes, exactly.
On Friday.
Exactly.
It was crazy. I mean,
if not for somehow what's his name? What's the center's name? Jackson Powers Johnson.
Yeah.
If not for him accidentally spiking the ball into Aiden O'Connell's face without him noticing.
Yeah, right.
They would have lost.
So I just think that it's another divisional game. Those games are usually pretty tough. So big spotlight. I'm hoping this is Justin Herbert's big win where everybody.
That would be pretty cool.
Everybody remembers this one from him, in the way that we remember I don't know, that Bills Chiefs divisional game where they went to overtime and were just tearing it up.
And even my moment,
Allen.
But even that moment, I think of for Herbert, that when I mentioned it a few weeks ago, where they were playing the Raiders to get in the playoffs, and he converted 4 fourth downs in a row. It was an incredible performance, and they still lost the game.
Well,
it's
back to Brandon Staley.
Yeah, it's Herbert. It's Herbert. Unfortunately, has had these awesome moments, and it's usually in a losing performance.
I know. Well, that ghost has been transferred to Joe Burrow now.
Yes, right, exactly. Well, maybe it's shaking him off. Maybe he's shaking it off and handed it to Joe.
Yeah, exactly. That's another way that Harbaugh is cursing the state of Ohio.
That's right. He's sorry, buddy.
Anyway, your final pick.
Yes, I'm taking the Bills minus 3.5. I've learned my lesson after all these weeks. I'm until
All in
further,
on the Bills.
Yeah, until further notice, I'm not betting against the Bills in any capacity. Josh Allen, as we've discussed, I think has firmly positioned himself. I mean, outside of like obviously, I think some people are clamoring or would love to see like a running back in Saquon be actually in contention for the MVP race, but like. I still think of as
I'm sorry, he's not the MVP on a team of all-stars. It's ridiculous.
But seeing it as still as sort of what I see it to be, which is still kind of mostly a quarterback award.
Should be Josh Allen.
I think it will be. I think it should be Josh Allen. I think and
Saquon's having a great season, but like by the definition of MVP is like, what would this team be without this player?
Right.
And the Eagles would still be a phenomenal team.
And most likely he'll be Offensive Player of the Year. Like he will be rewarded for how incredible his season has been. But Allen's been playing some of the best football of his career. He's been doing death-defying, jaw-dropping things all season. I still think even with the injuries, but the injuries, making me feel as if I'm actually more impressed with the Bills' defense and how well coached they've been. But Matt Milano being back, I think is a nice thing. Obviously, I imagine they'll probably try to reintegrate him slowly, just so he doesn't get too much on his plate and re-aggravate anything. But despite this is what I was sort of talking about, where I think Ford Field for the Lions, I actually think is a home field advantage, where I've been saying all year, SoFi to me is not really that much of a home field advantage. So I don't see too much of a hindrance or an impediment for the Bills to go to probably what is a pretty warm weather game after the Snow Bowl they had against San Francisco last week, and
right.
Allen just having with kind of potentially perfect conditions, absent anything significant going on there, just to kind of like dice up the Rams secondary, because I genuinely like, I think Byron Young, I think Jared Versus had a great season. He might honestly be he might be in contention for Defensive Rookie of the Year outside of Quinyon Mitchell. I think Braden Fisk is also, his former college teammate, have had great seasons, but I still think the Rams secondary is pretty anonymous, and I think Allen can very much feast on those guys, both in the air and on the ground.
I like that pick. I think the Buffalo Bills are definitely up there with like one of the best teams in the league. I mean,
100%, yeah. Not
better than the Eagles or Lions probably, but like they beat the Chiefs. I got to put them above them, right? I mean,
but you're just by virtue of a head-to-head matchup where we've seen them play. I mean,
yeah. So I think the cream is separating a little bit from the crop. Is that the right phrase? Have I messed that up every time now?
I think you can.
The cream is rising to the top.
So I think you can say cream is rising to the top and the wheat is separating from the chaff.
Yes, but I've combined them.
That's okay. I think
all right. Well,
work.
Anyway,
it works.
Long story short, Bradley and I are both going with the Dolphins minus 5.5 at home against the Jets. Bradley's picking Thursday Night Football. Detroit Lions minus 3 against the Packers tonight. I'm going with the Bears plus 3.5 in San Francisco and the Chargers plus 4 in Kansas City. And then Bradley's final pick is the Buffalo Bills minus 3.5 against the Rams. So, week 14, we're heating up. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Enjoy the games.
Enjoy the games.